States District Court, Northern District of Illinois, Eastern Division, United States of America versus Charles Liggins, ET.AL. Government, Santiago proffer and motion to admit evidence pursuant to Federal Rule of Evidence 081D2E. We just going to go ahead and look at the table of contents real quick. The introduction, overview of the conspiracy to murder Carlton Weekly, and aid of racketeering is charged in count 3 of the superseding indictment. What I'm going to do is, bro, I'm going to just read through all of this. If I mess up, I mess up. I personally don't care. So if y'all hear me say, excuse me, pardon me, and all that stuff, bro, I'm just trying to put this out for y'all because I know y'all want this immediately. So here we go. The introduction, overview of the conspiracy to commit murder Carlton Weekly and aid of racketeering is charged in count 3 of the superseding indictment. 2, overview of OBlock as an enterprise engaged in racketeering activity. OBlock is an enterprise as defined in Title 18, United States Code, Section 1959B2. OBlock engaged in racketeering activity as defined in Title 18. OBlock has a deadly rivalry with St. Lawrence EBT dating back at least a decade. OBlock is clicked up with neighboring black disciple factions, dead bitches, governing law, existence of membership in conspiracy, and furtherance of the conspiracy, alternative basis for admissibility of statements, a defendant's own statements, non-hearsay statements, statements against penal interest, co-conspirator statements after Crawford, the evidence demonstrating the existence of the charged conspiracy and defendant's participation in the conspiracy to murder Carlton Weekly on August 4th, 2020. Ralph Turpin and witness 2 saw Weekly inside of Milani Boutique. Smart, Robbins, Liggins, Thomas, and Alfred begin making their way to East Oak Street to murder Weekly. Roberson made statements in furtherance of the conspiracy to Cooperator 4, acknowledged that Roberson was on his way to murder Weekly. Turpin placed at least 1 phone call to report Weekly's location. Smart, Roberson, Thomas, Liggins, and Alfred murder Weekly, then split up in different locations, different directions. Alfred made statements in furtherance of the conspiracy to witness 6. Roberson made additional statements in furtherance of the conspiracy to Cooperator 4. Roberson made additional statements in furtherance of the conspiracy to witness 7. This time, for purposes of concealment, CPD seized Roberson's Chrysler 300 the day after the murder, and Roberson called CPD to get it back. You can't make this up. Charles Liggins made statements in furtherance of concealment of the conspiracy, OBlock change, social media, tattoos, conspirator statements, and a conclusion. We're not about to read the table of authorities. We're not doing none of that. We just gonna keep on rolling. So, I'm not about to, well, we can do this. The United States of America, by its attorney, Morris Pascal, acting United States attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, submit the following proffer of evidence as to the admission at trial of certain conspirator statements against defendants Charles Liggins, Kenneth Roberson, to Carlos Alfred, Christopher Thomas, Marcus Smart, and Ralph Turpin, and moves for the admission of such statements pursuant to Federal Rules Evidence 104A and 801D2E and United States versus Santiago 582 F2D 1128 7th Circuit 1978. Introduction. In this submission, the government describes the law governing conspirator statements, outlines some of its evidence establishing the violent crimes in aid of racketeering, VCAR, conspiracy charge in count 3 of the superseding indictment, and sets forth some of the conspirators' statements for which a pretrial ruling by the court is requested in accordance with Santiago 582 FD at 11/30/31, an established practice in the circuit. See United States versus Alvier 573 F3D 526 540 7th Circuit 2009. United States versus Harris. We ain't doing all that. The submission does not detail all of the government's evidence that would establish the existence of the V-Card conspiracy or all the co-conspirator statements that were made in furtherance of the charged racketeering conspiracy. Rather, this submission highlights for the court certain of the government's evidence sufficient to establish the existence of the V-Card conspiracy described in count 3 of the superseding indictment and the participation of the co-conspirators. As a result of this submission, does not list all of the government's evidence and witnesses, nor does it provide all of the evidence that would be presented by identified witnesses. Finally, by presenting statements attributed to particular witnesses, the government is not committing to call each of the witnesses for each of the statements attributed. Overview of the conspiracy to murder Carlton Weekly in aid of racketeering as charged in count 3 of the superseding indictment. On the afternoon of August 4th, 2020, Carlton Weekly, who made music under the stage name FBG Duck, was shopping for clothes for his son's birthday in Milani Boutique on East Oak Street in the Gold Coast. Approximately 3:59 p.m., Ralph Turpin and a friend of Turpin's entered into Milani Boutique and noticed Weekly. Weekly is a gangster disciple from the STL faction. Turpin did not like Weekly prior to August 4th, 2020, and knew to call rival Weekly's gang rival, and knew to call rival Weekly's rival gang members who would come downtown to kill Weekly. As a result, as set forth in further detail below, Turpin made at least one phone call inside of Milani Boutique to Weekly's rival gang members to come downtown to kill Weekly. Approximately 3 minutes later, after Turpin entered Milani Boutique at about 4:02, OBlock black disciples who have a bitter daily rivalry with the STL gangster disciples began scrambling to make their way downtown. They departed their neighborhood at approximately 4:06 in 2 cars with Kenneth Roberson, Charles Liggins, and Christopher Thomas inside of Roberson's gray Chrysler 300, and to Carlos Alford and Marcus Smart inside of Alford's black Ford Fusion. By the time the 2 cars arrived on East Oak Street at 4:26 p.m., Weekly was standing outside a different store, Dolce & Gabbana, waiting to go inside. A total of 4 shooters. 2 from each car exited and fired 38 times in 12 seconds, hitting Weekly 16 times. The person standing behind Weekly in line 3 times, victim 1, and Weekly's friend who was in her car 2 times, victim 2. Turpin was standing across the street on the phone watching the shooting unfold. Roberson, Liggins, Smart, Thomas, and Alfred have each been identified from surveillance footage inside of the Parkway Gardens homes, Parkway Gardens, on the south side of Chicago, from which they departed to murder Weekly, and to which Roberson, Liggins, and Thomas returned after the murder. Alfred, who had just purchased his Ford Fusion on July 28, 2020, returned to the dealership immediately after the murder, but along with Smart, was picked up from the dealership by a former girlfriend. The 5 of them have been identified in the surveillance video by friends, a security guard at Parkway Gardens, girlfriends, fellow gang members, a rival gang member, and other witnesses. Similarly, Turpin was captured on audio and video confessing to what he had done inside a Milani Boutique, although Turpin did not know he was being recorded. Overview of OBlock as an enterprise engaged in racketeering activity. OBlock is an enterprise as defined in Title 18 United States Code Section 1959 B2. OBlock is a street gang and criminal enterprise situated in Parkway Gardens on the south side of Chicago. OBlock is a faction of the larger Black Disciple street gang. Parkway Gardens is a fenced-in apartment complex consisting of approximately 35 buildings and is located between approximately 63rd Street and 66th Street on South Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. Because Parkway Gardens is fenced in and employs security guards at various checkpoints, OBlock members and Black disciples from neighboring allied factions have described Parkway Gardens as a fortress and headquarters. This setup makes it difficult for opposing gang members to easily ambush OBlock members. OBlock is comprised of members who engage in violent criminal acts, including murder and assault. OBlock is also comprised of drug dealers. Some OBlock members make drill music, often bragging about their criminal activities, publicly claiming responsibility for acts of violence committed by OBlock, taunting rival gang members and mocking opposing gang members and their associates who have been murdered. OBlock members use social media platforms to promote OBlock and disparage their rivals. At times, material to allegations in superseding indictment, OBlock had meetings where OBlock business was discussed, including acts of violence committed against OBlock members and violence to be committed against OBlock rivals. For example, Cooperator 1, a black disciple initiated through the Newtown faction, but who lived in Parkway Gardens from approximately 2006 to 2007 to 2011 and continued to be active as a black disciple while living in Parkway Gardens, may testify at trial. If Cooperator 1 is called to testify at trial, the government expects that Cooperator 1 will testify that while he lived in Parkway Gardens, OBlock members, OBlock was called Wick City at the time, would have weekly or bi-weekly meetings with $20 due that were paid at each meeting. If a member did not pay dues, that member would be charged interest for unpaid dues. The money was pulled together for various purposes, including memorials, at funerals for deceased members, bond money for members, and for purchasing firearms. Cooperator 1 continued to live close to Parkway Gardens after moving out of Parkway Gardens in 2011. Cooperator 2, a current OBlock member, may testify at trial if called to testify at trial. The government expects that Cooperator 2 will testify that he moved to Parkway Gardens in late 2000s and became an OBlock member in approximately 2007. Cooperator 2 will testify that OBlock members continue to have meetings and that only shooters and drug dealers are invited to the meetings. Cooperator 2 has been to meetings where firearms and narcotics were distributed to OBlock members. Cooperator 2 will testify that at times, material to superseding indictment, OBlock had structure, a hierarchy, and rules that OBlock members were expected to abide by. Cooperator 1 and Cooperator 2 will testify that OBlock members may have received a violation if they did not abide by the rules, including but not limited to an organized beating, and that violations for OBlock members were discussed in meetings. Cooperator 2 will testify that at times material to the superseding indictment, the leaders of OBlock were Boss Top, known in law enforcement as individual AJ Duke, known in law enforcement as individual BJ known to law enforcement as individual CJ, defended Charles Liggins and Davon Bennett, aka King Von, when he was alive. Bennett was murdered in Atlanta, Georgia on or about November 6, 2020. Cooperator 1 and Cooperator 2 may testify that defendant Marcus Smart began to emerge as a leader within OBlock after Bennett was murdered. According to Cooperator 2, Smart kept a fund for commissary and a bond for incarcerated OBlock members, but Smart wouldn't necessarily collect the money at meetings. Smart would go around every week or every other week to collect $100 from members, according to Cooperator 2. This has been going in OBlock forever. OBlock engaged in racketeering activities as defined in Title 18, United States Code Section 1959, B1 and 1961, 1. The government expects Cooperator 1, if called, will testify that OBlock members made their money by committing burglaries and robberies and by selling drugs when he lived in Parkway Gardens. According to Cooperator 1, OBlock members controlled the drug trade inside of Parkway Gardens when he lived there and continue to do so today. According to Cooperator 1, OBlock members would use vacant apartments to store firearms and narcotics, and no one could sell drugs inside of Parkway Gardens without the permission of OBlock members. The government expects that if called, Cooperator 2 will testify that marijuana pills and heroin are distributed in meetings. Cooperator 2 has personally even seen OBlock members selling heroin and marijuana in Parkway Gardens, and Cooperator 2 himself was a drug dealer. OBlock members are generally the only people who can sell drugs in Parkway Gardens, and OBlock members enforce that. However, according to Cooperator 2, other people who are not OBlock members can come into Parkway Gardens and sell drugs if they pay a percentage. According to Cooperator 2, OBlock members are expected to shoot at opposing gang members, and that is the only way to rise through the ranks in OBlock outside of having a lot of money from selling drugs and making music. Killers have more respect within OBlock than people who just shoot, and killing a high-profile opposition member, often referred to as an op, will increase status within OBlock even more. OBlock has a deadly rivalry with STL EBT dating back at least a decade. Cooperator 2 lived in Parkway Gardens and was Active as a youngster, OBlock member back when OBlock was still active, called Wick City. OD Perry, an OBlock member, was murdered by STL member, I can't even say KI's damn name, Garika Barnes, on August 11, 2011. STL member Cooperator 3 may testify at trial, will testify if called that Garika was his sister, and he has firsthand knowledge that she murdered Perry. Damn. Thereafter, Cooperator 2 will testify. Wick City became known as OBlock in OD Perry's memory. The antagonism between OBlock and STL increased after Perry's murder. Cooperator 2 will testify that OBlock members were expected to shoot at and kill STL members in order to maintain or increase their status within OBlock, and that killing a high-profile STL member would substantially increase an OBlock member's status. If an OBlock member did not shoot at the ops, that person would then be treated like a goofy, which is to say, at minimum, a person's status would decrease, pardon me. Cooperator 3 will testify that he has witnessed murders committed by OBlock members in STL territory. Specifically, the government expects that Cooperator 3 will testify that he witnessed the murder of Dale Fisher, aka Squirrel, in STL territory in December 2011. According to Cooperator 3, Fisher was not a gang member, but lived in STL territory. Fisher was murdered by OBlock member T. Roy, known to law enforcement as James T. Johnson, and 600 member D. Rose, known to law enforcement as Individual D. As explained in further detail below, 600 is a black disciple faction allied with OBlock. Cooperator 3 was also present for and witnessed the murder of his sister, Garika Barnes, by OBlock members Devon Bennett in STL territory on April 14, 2014. Cooperator 3 was also shot by Bennett during the incident. Cooperator 3 was able to escape and saw Johnson waiting for him at the end of the alley he was about to run through. So instead, Cooperator 3 was able to wait until Bennett and Johnson left before leaving. Cooperator 3 observed Bennett stand over Barnes and shoot her multiple times. Witness 1, who may testify at trial, also observed this murder. Witness 1 later saw Bennett come back to the neighborhood after the murder and state in a threatening manner that Bennett was from OBlock. Cooperator 3 will testify if called that STL members and OBlock members antagonize each other online, including with respect to deceased OBlock and STL members. Specifically, Cooperator 3 may testify that OBlock member individually antagonized Cooperator 3 after Barnes' murder during a FaceTime call, with individual A claiming to be the one who drove the shooters to STL territory. OBlock is clicked up with neighboring Black Disciple factions. Cooperator 2 will testify if called that OBlock is clicked up or allied with several neighboring Black Disciple factions. OBlock and 600 have clicked up since Cooperator 2 became an OBlock member. Cooperator 2 will testify that OBlock later became clicked up with Lamron, 64th Street, and Normal Boulevard in the early 2010s, and THF, which stands for Trigger Happy Family, sometimes referred to as THF-06 and THF-04. Shortly thereafter, if a gang faction is clicked up with another gang faction, they work together and inherit and adopt each other's conflicts. So if 600 or THF is clicked up with OBlock, 600 and THF would also be in conflict with STL. Dead Bitches. On July 10, 2020, Weekly released a song entitled Dead Bitches. According to the number of witnesses who will testify, including Cooperator 2, rappers from STL and rappers from OBlock, 600, and Lamron would often disparage the other side in their music. Dead Bitches, however, was a particularly blistering diss record. In the song, Weekly raps in a disrespectful manner about a number of dead OBlock members, including O.D. Perry, T. Roy Johnson, Keita, and Sherrod Liggins, defendant Liggins' younger brother. The government expects that Cooperator 2 and others will identify and name the individuals disrespected in the song at trial. As of August 4th, 2023, Dead Bitches almost hit 41 million views on YouTube. Weekly currently has approximately 430,000 subscribers to his YouTube channel. Governing law. Federal Rule of Evidence 801D 2E provides that a statement is not hearsay if it is offered against the party, and a statement by a co-conspirator of a party during the course and in furtherance of the conspiracy. Admission of such co-conspirator statements against a defendant is proper where the government established by a preponderance of the evidence that 1, a conspiracy existed, 2, the defendant and the declarant were members of the conspiracy, and 3, the statements were made during the course and in furtherance of the conspiracy. United States versus Cruz Ria, 426 F 3D 929 373, 7th Circuit, 2010. Existence of and membership of in the conspiracy. We're gonna go down a little bit real quick. This stuff at the bottom really doesn't really matter. This is just going into the laws of it, like how we can see it further into the conspiracy. This is basically how they apply the laws. In determining whether a statement was made in furtherance of the conspiracy, courts evaluate the statements in the context in which it was made and look for a reasonable basis upon which to conclude that the statement furthered the conspiracy. So this basically is getting to how they apply the laws and making sure they do their due diligence, right? Because what'll happen is, if you have a paid lawyer, they'll have some first years, or they other lawyers. I can't remember the name exactly right now. They'll have them go ahead and look at all this and make sure that the laws right here. So here we go. All right. So evidence demonstrating the existence of the charged conspiracy and the defendant's participation in the conspiracy. At trial, the government's evidence will establish that Charles Liggins, Kenneth Roberson, Carlos Alfred, Christopher Thomas, and Marcus Smart conspire with each other and others to murder Weekly for the purpose of maintaining and increasing their position in OBlock, an enterprise engaged in racketeering activity. At trial, the government's evidence will also establish that Ralph Turpin aided and abetted Weekly's murder and the conspiracy to murder Weekly. As set forth below, the evidence that established the existence of this V-card conspiracy meets the preponderance of the evidence standard applicable at this stage of the proceedings below. The government has summarized some of the evidence that it will present at trial regarding the existence of the charged conspiracy. The conspiracy to murder Carlton Weekly on August 4, 2020. Ralph Turpin and Witness 2 saw Weekly inside a Milani boutique. According to the video surveillance footage from several businesses along East Oak Street, CPD POD camera footage, cell phone recorded by a security guard at a store working on East Oak Street, which captured defendant Ralph Turpin speaking on the telephone. And Witness 2, who may testify at trial, Witness 2 and Turpin traveled to East Oak Street on the afternoon of August 4, 2020 to buy clothes for Witness 2's children. According to the Victim 2 and video surveillance footage, Victim 2 and Weekly had also traveled to East Oak Street to purchase some presents for Weekly's son's birthday. Victim 2, who drove Weekly to East Street that day, waited outside in her vehicle parked on the street while Weekly shopped inside of their first shop of the afternoon, Milani Boutique, located at 50 East Oak Street. According to the owners of Milani Boutique, who may testify at trial, Milani is a boutique that sells children clothing, and Weekly has shopped at the store before. At approximately 3:59 p.m., while Weekly was inside of Milani, Turpin and Witness 2 entered into Milani. While Turpin and Weekly were both still inside of Milani, Turpin placed at least one phone call to alert others, including the named defendants, that Weekly was inside of Milani. The government will introduce evidence at trial of Turpin recounting this conversation minutes later, unaware he was being recorded. Minutes later, at approximately 4:02, the other 5 named defendants began scrambling in Parkway Gardens to make their way downtown to murder Weekly. Smart, Roberson, Liggins, Thomas, and Alfred began making their way to East Street to murder Weekly. Specifically, at approximately 4:02, Smart ran across a parking lot away from where Alfred's Black Ford Fusion was parked and ran up a flight of stairs. Smart ran past a group of 3 people by the stairwell, which included Roberson. Roberson then turned and ran up the stairwell after Smart. After a few minutes, Smart ran down the stairwell wearing different clothes, dressed in all black. Thomas ran down dressed in all black, including a backpack, striped Adidas jacket, and putting a black baseball cap onto his head, followed by Roberson, who was wearing the same clothes he was wearing when he went up the stairs. Liggins came down last, also dressed in dark clothing and a baseball cap. Turned to the back, Smart entered into Alfred's Ford Fusion, while Liggins, Thomas, and Roberson entered into Roberson's gray Chrysler 300. The cars departed the Parkway and Parkway Gardens at approximately 4:06 p.m. A CPD license plate reader and multiple CPD police observation devices, POD and POD camera, captured the Chrysler Fusion traveling from Parkway Gardens to East Oak Street at multiple points, traveling in tandem. Roberson's Chrysler 300 was registered to Roberson on the day of the murder, and Alfred's Ford Fusion was registered to Alfred on the day of the murder. So as y'all can see right here, here's a picture of the cars. I'm going to screenshot this real quick because I know these cats going to want this. Hold on. Wrong button. Based on the timing and number of data points, at least one license plate reader, even POD cameras on the way to commit the murder, and private surveillance footage, and the path that the vehicles traveled, I-90, 94, to Lakeshore Drive, the path and timing is consistent with the vehicles traveling directly from Parkway Gardens to East Oak Street without making any stops. This is corroborated by data from Roberson's cell phone. The data from Roberson's cell phone is consistent with Roberson traveling from Parkway Gardens directly to East Oak Street at the time of the murder, and then back to Parkway Gardens right after the murder. Roberson made statements in furtherance of the conspiracy to Cooperator 4, acknowledging that Roberson was on his way to Murder Weekly. According to Cooperator 4, who may testify at trial, an information retrieved from Cooperator 4's cell phone, Roberson and Cooperator 4 were exchanging text messages while Roberson was traveling to Murder Weekly, and shortly after Roberson and his co-conspirators had Murder Weekly, specifically Cooperator 4 and Roberson were exchanging text messages because Cooperator 4 was attempting to return a firearm to Roberson at 4:19 p.m. While POD camera footage would show that Roberson was on Lakeshore Drive near East Oak Street, which corroborated by Roberson's cell phone data, Roberson texts Cooperator 4 to take the gun to Parkway Gardens because they were on duck right now, meaning on the way to kill Weekly. So you can see this right here. Let me screenshot this right here. So you see right here, don't worry, bitch, when I call you, better come like a bat out of hell. You know this. Bitch, I'm finna pipe up. Nah, wait, bitch. I got shit to do, bitch. Take it to the we on duck right now. Check Spot News. Weekly exited Milani and entered into Victim 2's vehicle at approximately 4:04 p.m. As stated above, Smart, Liggins, Roberson, Thomas, and Alfred appeared to have received some news at approximately 4:02 and left Parkway Gardens at approximately 4:06 p.m., traveling directly towards Weekly location on East Oak Street. Weekly and Victim 2 pulled away from the curb in front of Milani at approximately 4:05, returning minutes later and parking in front of Dulce and Gabbana. Dulce and Gabbana, located at 68 East Oak Street, is on the same side of the street as Milani. Turpin exited Milani without witness 2 at approximately 4:07 p.m. Turpin entered into a clothing store down and across the street, Montclair, located at 33 East Street at approximately 4:10. Turpin discussed what had occurred inside of Milani while speaking on the phone inside of Montclair. Because Turpin was speaking in a wild, agitated state, a security guard inside of Montclair began to record him. The security guard, witness 3, who may testify at trial, began recording Turpin at 4:13 p.m. So this idiot right here. Turpin asked someone that he was speaking on the phone, what's D-Thang number? And went to tell the person to whom Turpin was speaking with to have D-Thang call. Turpin, multiple witnesses are expected to testify that D-Thang Dante Banks Jr., the older brother of individual E, 10 multiple witnesses will testify that individual E is a high-ranking black disciple and at times material to supersede an indictment, was and is a part of the black disciple faction aligned with OBlock Lamron. Let me screenshot this real quick because I know these cats gonna want to see this. Minutes later, Turpin began discussing a woman who Turpin did not name specifically, but who Turpin referenced as being in a romantic relationship with Weekly and having Weekly around Turpin's child. Turpin described the woman as bogus and went on to state, "It's over with now, though." Witness 4, who may testify at trial, identified Turpin in a video as her father's child. Witness 4 also acknowledged that she had been in a romantic relationship with Weekly, but was not at the time of Weekly's murder. Should Witness 4 testify at trial, the government expects that Witness 4 will testify that she was heartbroken upon learning Weekly's death because she loved Weekly. Witness 4 also testified that on the day of Weekly's murder, after Weekly's murder, she received a text message from Turpin that contained simply 3 laughing emojis. Witness 4 will testify that she was not in regular contact with Turpin as her child has a cell phone, allowing Turpin and her child to communicate directly. Witness 5, who has known Turpin for many years and who may testify at trial, will testify that prior to August 4th, 2020, Turpin did not like Weekly over jealousy stemming from Weekly's relationship with Witness 4. While Turpin was discussing the unnamed woman, Turpin received an incoming phone call from a telephone number associated with D-Thang. Based upon Turpin's cell phone records, Turpin's other phone calls inside of Montclair and Milani would have likely been video calls as opposed to calls using the telephone number. However, this call from the telephone number associated with D-Thang was an actual telephone call. Turpin answered the phone call from the number associated with D-Thang at 4:18. Turpin told the caller that he and Witness 2 saw Weekly inside of Milani. Turpin told the caller that Turpin had people on the phone and on the way downtown while he, Weekly, and Witness 2 were still inside of Milani Boutique. Turpin then told the caller that when Weekly left Milani, he followed Weekly outside and reported as much to Badass, known to law enforcement as THF member Individual F. According to Turpin, Badass then told Turpin to see what kind of car Weekly was getting into. Turpin then told the caller that Turpin was standing outside of Milani when Weekly pulled off, and after walking up the street a little bit, someone began chasing Turpin down the street with a gun. Witness 2 may testify at trial that in the above exchange, Turpin was providing Weekly's location. Turpin eventually stood across the street from Weekly on the phone for several minutes until Weekly was murdered at 4:26, walking over to Weekly to get a better look at Weekly after he had been gunned down. According to video evidence, Alfred's Fusion and Roberson's Chrysler 300 arrived at Dolce & Gabbana at approximately 4:26. With the Chrysler trailing the Fusion, 2 people, including Smart, exited from the passenger side of the Fusion and started shooting at Weekly while Weekly was standing on the sidewalk. Weekly and Victim 1, who was in line behind Weekly, ran away from the shooters, circled around the back of Victim 2's car and attempted to hide, but the shooters aggressively pursued Weekly. According to Victim 2, she picked up Weekly's gun and shot at the individuals who exited from Alfred's Fusion. This detail is not public and is significant for reasons that follow. Liggins and Thomas then exited from the passenger side of Roberson's Chrysler. The rear passenger, Thomas, stood over and shot at Weekly while Weekly was on the ground. Then the shooting lasted about 12 seconds in total. The shooters fired 38 times, hitting Weekly 16 times, Victim 2 twice, and Victim 1 3 times. The shooters got back into their respective vehicles, and Roberson's Chrysler pulled away from the scene first, followed by Alfred's Fusion. Alfred made statements in furtherance of the conspiracy to Witness 6. Alfred purchased the Ford Fusion from Midway Auto House in Bridgeview, Illinois, on July 28, 2020. On the date of the purchase, Alfred was accompanied by Witness 6. Witness 6, who may testify at trial, is Alfred's ex-girlfriend and the mother of one of Alfred's children. Alfred lied about his employment on the financing application for the vehicle, and Witness 6 is expected to testify. Alfred manufactured pay stubs in order to create the impression that he was employed. This was discovered on or about August 3rd, 2020, prompting Alfred to begin the text message exchange with an employee of Midway Auto House on that day. Continuing through August 4th, 2020, Witness 6 will testify that she assisted Alfred in negotiating what to say to Midway Auto House in terms of Alfred returning the vehicle, and that Alfred planned to return the car on August 4th, 2020. According to cell phone records and photographs of the car dealership employees' text messages at 4:35, approximately 9 minutes after the murder, Alfred texted the car dealership employee that Alfred was on his way to return the car to the dealership. Witness 6 will testify that Alfred spent the night at her house on the night of August 3rd, morning of August 4th, that she and Alfred had discussed that she would give Alfred a ride home from the dealership when he was ready. Witness 6 will testify that she received a phone call from Alfred the afternoon on August 4th, awakening her from a nap, telling Witness 6, 1, that Alfred was on his way to the dealership to meet him at the dealership and to text him the address of the dealership. Shortly thereafter, Witness 6 texts Alfred the address for the dealership at 4:39 p.m. Witness 6 arrived at the dealership at approximately 5:15 p.m., beating Alfred to the dealership. Alfred arrived 10 to 15 minutes later. Alfred arrived at the dealership with Smart and Alfred's cousin, Ezel Rawls. Alfred then directed Witness 6 to drop Alfred and Smart and Rawls off at different OBlock members' residence, including Individual G, which she did. Witness 6 identified Individual G in photos as an OBlock member. After Alfred instructed Witness 6 to take him, Smart, and Rawls to Individual G's house, the three did not speak for the remainder of the ride. In approximately late August or early September 2021, Witness 6 became aware of a video that a blogger made and uploaded to YouTube, indicating in summary that Alfred was involved in Weekly's murder, purporting to include police scanner audio from August 4, 2020, relating to Alfred's Ford Fusion, and music that Alfred had made. Someone texted the video to Witness 6. Witness 6 asked Alfred about the video. Alfred responded to Witness 6 that people were praying on his downfall and that they hoped he got locked up so that they could have sex with his current girlfriend. That Alfred don't know nothing and that he didn't want to talk on the phone about it. In later conversation, after Witness 6 indicated to Alfred that she had been contacted by law enforcement, Alfred told Witness 6 that she don't know nothing, which Witness 6 understood to mean that Alfred did not want Witness 6 to tell law enforcement where she dropped Alfred off on August 4th, 2020. Roberson made additional statements in furtherance of the conspiracy to Cooperator 4. After murdering Weekly, Roberson continued his text message exchange with Cooperator 4 about Weekly, at this point gloating, specifically at 4:40 p.m. while Roberson was still driving back to Parkway Gardens. Roberson texted Cooperator 4 to check Spot News at 5:20. After Roberson arrived at Parkway Gardens, Roberson sent Cooperator 4 a link to a news story about Weekly's murder. Here you go right here. Well, we already said this, but we'll read it again. Don't worry, bitch, when I call you, better come like a bat out of hell. You know this, bitch, I'm finna pipe up. No, wait, bitch, I got shit to do, bitch. Take it to the O, we on duck right now. Check Spot News. Yes, sir. FC Loaf God. Cooperator 4 would testify that several days later, Roberson met with Cooperator 4 and confessed to Cooperator 4 in person to have participated in the murder. However, in the version of events Roberson relayed that Cooperator 4, Roberson embellished his role, describing himself as a shooter. which is inconsistent with the surveillance video. According to Cooperator 4, Roberson told Cooperator 4 that Roberson was in the back seat and fell as soon as he got out and started shooting. Hold on. Roberson told Cooperator 4 that Roberson was in the back seat and fell as he got out to start shooting. Roberson told Cooperator 4 that Roberson started shooting from the street and a woman started shooting back at him. So C Murder, meaning Liggins, shot her as stated above. This detail about the offense is not public. Roberson made the following additional statements to Cooperator 4 about the offense. The defendants used Roberson's Chrysler 300 to commit the murder, and there were more than one car used to commit the murder. That 3 or 4 people murder weekly, but C Murder was the only name that Cooperator 4 remembered. That CPD seized Roberson's Chrysler after the murder. That Dipset, a gang faction where Roberson is from originally, is clicked up with OBlock, and as a result in conflict with STL, where Weekly is from. Roberson indicated that this is a part of the reason why Roberson participated in the murder. That OBlock member Devon Bennett had placed a hit out on Weekly prior to the murder, and this is additionally why Roberson participated in the murder. That C Murder offered Roberson an OBlock chain after they murdered Weekly and told Roberson that Roberson might as well become OBlock. But Roberson turned the OBlock chain down because Roberson was from Dipset. Roberson made additional statements in furtherance of the conspiracy to witness 7, this time for purposes of concealment. At approximately 9:56 a.m. on the day after the murder, witness 7, who may testify at trial, sent Roberson a link to a news story about the murder via Instagram. Witness 7 followed up her message by writing to Roberson, "I know you ain't take your car to go do this shit." In response, Roberson twice instructed witness 7 to unsend that shit. So you can see right here. We're going to go ahead and boom, screenshot that. Witness 7 will testify that she saw a news article about a Chrysler similar to the one that Roberson drove being used to commit Weekly's murder. And she knew that Roberson and Weekly did not get along, which is what prompted her to message Roberson. Witness 7 asked Roberson to call her via Apple FaceTime, which he did. When they spoke, Roberson asked Witness 7 why she sent him that message and why she thought Roberson used his car to commit the murder. Roberson then indicated that he did not know what Witness 7 was talking about, and the two changed the subject. CPD seized Roberson's Chrysler 300 the day after the murder, and Roberson called CPD to get it back. CPD had in fact seized Roberson's Chrysler on August 5th, 2020, in the aftermath of Weekly's murder. After securing a search warrant for the Chrysler, during the search of the Chrysler, CPD recovered contact information for Liggins from inside the Chrysler that appeared to have been written by Liggins. My cell phone number is, and this gets crazy as hell, 1-773-557-6775, IG OBlock _C_murder, etc. CPD also recovered a spent .357 shell casing from the passenger side of the Chrysler, resting in between the windshield and the hood, according to Karen Tucker, who has been disclosed as an expert in firearms tool marks examination. The spent .357 shell casing recovered from the Chrysler and the sole .357 shell casing recovered from the scene of the murder were fired from the same gun. Thereafter, Roberson and one of his girlfriends at the time, Witness 8, called CPD to have the Chrysler 300 returned to Roberson. Witness 8, who may testify at trial, will identify the Chrysler 300 in a picture that CPD took after CPD seized the Chrysler as Roberson's Chrysler 300. Witness 8 will testify, if called, that she called CPD at Roberson's direction on behalf to have the Chrysler returned to her. Witness 8 will testify that CPD informed her that only the registered owner, Roberson, could get the car. Witness 8 then lied to CPD, indicating that she had power of attorney over Roberson's affair in order to get the car returned to her on Roberson's behalf. CPD Sergeant Jorge Rivera, who may testify at trial, will testify if called that witness A called him at least 12 times inquiring about the Chrysler 300 from August 6 to August 12, 2020. Sergeant Rivera will also testify that Roberson called Sergeant Rivera asking that the car be released to witness 8 on August 7, 2020, and August 11, 2020. On August 7, 2020, when Sergeant Rivera indicated to Roberson that Roberson would need to come to CPD, show identification, and fill out a form in order to get the Chrysler 300. Roberson told Sergeant Rivera that Roberson was out of town. Roberson never retrieved the Chrysler 300 from CPD. I mean, yeah, I would hope not. But the way this shit going, you wouldn't be out of your goddamn mind. Charles Liggins made statements in furtherance of concealment of the conspiracy to murder Weekly on or about October 14, 2021, after the defendants had been arrested. On the indictment, Liggins spoke to an acquaintance believed to be individual H based on the telephone number called and subject of the conversation via a jail call. During the call, Liggins instructed the person he called to tell Duke that everyone needed to get new phones. Liggins went on to discuss the murder with the person he called, describing the case as weak. Specifically, Liggins indicated that law enforcement had shown him a video of the crime scene and shooters' faces could not be seen because they were wearing masks. Liggins went on to state that the video of him and his co-defendants, whom he did not name specifically, going up and down the stairs in Parkway Gardens ain't nothing. OBlock chains. Several members of OBlock wore gold necklaces with diamond-encrusted gold pendants at times relevant to the conspiracy to murder Weekly. Specifically, several members wore OBlock chains in the months leading up to Weekly's murder, and several more members began wearing OBlock chains in the weeks and months that followed Weekly's murder. The OBlock chains were purchased from a manufacturer by Icebox Diamonds Watches in Atlanta, Georgia, at various points throughout calendar year 2020. According to an Icebox representative and co-owner, witness 9, Devon Bennett, purchased the OBlock chains on Bennett's account throughout 2020. Specifically, Bennett spent $128,000 on OBlock pendants in 2020. 6 of the OBlock pendants, including Bennett's larger pendant. On or about January 24, 2020, Bennett purchased an OBlock pendant that he wore for $30,000. Bennett pendant was apparently 5 times larger and more expensive than the pendants he purchased for the other OBlock members later in the year. So here goes all the change and stuff right here. On or about July 2nd, 2020, Bennett ordered 5 OBlock pendants for $6,000 each, which he picked up on August 7, 2020. Bennett ordered 5 more OBlock pendants on July 9, 2020 for $6,000 each, which he picked up on August 14, 2020. Bennett ordered 2 more OBlock pendants on August 14, 2020, an additional one on August 28, 2020, an additional one on September 17, 2020, and an additional one on September 28, 2020. Bennett also ordered at least 1 more pendant that read THF on September 17, 2020 for $8,000. The backside of Bennett's pendant contained additional references to OBlock, including the names of deceased OBlock members underneath the words Long Live, including Keita, OD, Platoon, Sharoy, J Money, T-Roy. The back of Bennett's pendant also contained multiple references to 64, meaning 64th Street, and S. King Drive, where Parkway Gardens is located. Bennett's pendant also states OBlock for life. On or about August 10, 2020, 6 days after the murder, Smart was present inside of Icebox Diamonds and Watches with Bennett shopping for additional OBlock pendants. So here y'all can see right here. Liggins, Alfred, Smart, and Thomas have each publicly posted pictures of themselves wearing OBlock chains. For example, on or about August 9, 2020, Liggins posted a picture on his Instagram account of him wearing an OBlock chain. On or about August 28, 2020, Smart posted a picture to his Instagram account of him wearing an OBlock chain. On or about September 22nd, 2020, Thomas posted pictures on his Instagram account of Thomas wearing an OBlock chain. Whoa. Oh, look at this. On or about June 20th, 2021, the user account Losa64 uploaded a music video for the song Never Change, performed by Alfred, with Alfred wearing an OBlock chain. Witness 6 identified the person performing this music video as Alfred. However, Witness 6 indicated that, according to Alfred did not own his own OBlock chain and had instead borrowed one to shoot the music video. When Liggins and Smart were arrested for the charges in the indictment and superseding indictment, both were in possession of OBlock chains. The rear of Liggins' OBlock pendant reads "See Murder" at the top, an alias for Liggins. Long Live the Guys on the left side, and Shiroi Squad 1992-2012 at the bottom. For reasons stated above, Shiroi Squad 1992 through 2012 is reference to Shiroi's younger brother, Shiroi Liggins. According to reports from the Chicago Police Department, Shiroi Liggins was born on November 21st, 1992 and murdered on February 16, 2012 near 6421 South King Drive in Chicago. The rear Smart's OBlock chains reads "Muwap" at the top chain as alias for Smart, and the names of deceased OBlock members, including Johnny T. Roy, and sometimes referred to as Troy. Social media. At times material to the allegations in the superseding indictment, members of OBlock have publicly claimed membership in or association with OBlock on various social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Liggins, Roberson, Alfred, Thomas, and Smart have all either claimed membership in OBlock on social media or posted some association with OBlock on social media, at times material to the superseding indictment. In June, July, August 20, Liggins' Instagram and Facebook display names were OBlock See Murder Instagram, See Murder OBlock Facebook, for example. And they're just going through and showing y'all these niggas telling on themselves. In the header of Roberson's Instagram profile, Roberson referenced OBlock and other Black Disciple factions clicked up with OBlock, including 300, Lamron, and 600. So, this just going through. Look how skinny these niggas is, bro. Like little tiny ass niggas. Anyways, in Alfred's song Never Change, reference above page 64, Alfred states multiple times throughout the songs, OBlock, Money Gang, this shit will never change. Alfred's username for his Instagram account is 6los Moneyfo. As stated above, 64 is common reference among OBlock members to 64th in South King Drive, where Parkway Gardens is located. It's more Instagram right here. As reference on page 44, Smart's Instagram profile, move out from the O, as move out from OBlock, and depict Smart wearing an OBlock necklace and multiple posts. And then they're just going through showing all of this stuff. So, however, many statements are also made during the course of and in furtherance of the V-Card conspiracy to murder weekly and maintain or increase position in OBlock. The statement above, the co-conspirators and to others outside of the conspiracy in furtherance of the V-Card conspiracy to murder weekly fall into a number of categories, all concerning subjects integral to the conspiracy and its success, and further the objectives of OBlock as an enterprise. These statements will be introduced through the testimony of witnesses, including but not limited to those noted above, and other individuals who will be compelled to testify, consensually recorded in-person appearances and telephone recordings, including the recordings referenced throughout this submission, as well as recorded jail telephone calls, including the defendants, their associates, and undecided co-conspirators. Given the extent of the number of each statements in this case, the government does not and cannot detail each and every proposed co-conspirator statement of each witness document, nor does Santiago or Seventh Circuit precedent require the government to set forth specific verbatim co-conspirator statements instead of the several circuit circuits require the government to set forth specific verbatim co-conspirator statement. Instead, the Seventh Circuit has specifically stated that categories of statements such as those set forth suffices. So we're just going to go ahead and... Bruh, this is crazy. Statements made by Roberson to Cooperator 4 regarding Weekly's murder, including the following. Statements made by Roberson to Cooperator 4 that Roberson and his co-conspirators were on the way to murder Weekly in order to publicly take credit for an act of violence against a rival gang member and maintain or increase his position in OBlock. Statements made by Roberson to Cooperator 4 and the immediate aftermath of Roberson and his co-conspirators having just murdered Weekly, including directing Cooperator 4 to check spot news and sending Cooperator 4 a link. So this is all the stuff that we already seen. So this is just a little quick summary. The end. Make sure you subscribe, turn on that bell to stay notified, and share to keep your people aware. Your favorite local, especially after I spoke. Seti Nash, the Hood Lawyer. I'm gone.